You know, almost every homeless shelter in Baltimore City has shut down, and we shifted our homeless into motels and hotels until permanent housing was available to them. Well, now it's getting colder. Now it's a matter of life and death. Tonight, the city talked about getting those shelters back open, and WMAR 2 News' Eddie Kadam talked with people who have lived in those shelters and the people fighting for their rights. He joins us live, as you can see, right in front of City Hall tonight. Tell us, Eddie.
Good evening, Jamie. A group called Housing Our Neighbors started the Empty Our Shelters campaign at the beginning of the pandemic. Well, tonight there was a hearing about putting people back into the shelters, a move that Housing Our Neighbors calls a death sentence.
This thing gonna go on for a while, let me say that. And you never know where you might be at tomorrow.
In Baltimore, about 2,200 people experience homelessness on any given night. On a virtual conference, members of the homeless community voiced their concerns over the current conditions in shelters and the plan to bring people back during a pandemic in the height of flu season. I talked with some of them afterwards.
I could just imagine being in that position. I'm a month out. It would be devastating. I'm not going to talk about financially or just mentally and spiritually devastating. You know, it would feel like you just took 2 steps forward and got knocked 10 steps back.
The 2 shelters that would reopen at the end of December are Hughes and WHRC. At the start of the pandemic, 150 high-risk shelter residents were moved to hotels. Tisha Edwards, the director of the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, says they're using CARES Act dollars to get the shelters compliant to reopen under CDC guidelines.
We have a prioritization based on health risk. Those individuals who do not meet that initial priority list for more permanent housing, then we are working towards reopening the congregate shelters, both at Hughes and WHRC, under CDC guidelines.
Mahir Chaudhry is one of the medical directors of the Baltimore Convention Center Field Hospital. He says this winter is the worst time to move people back into a shelter, pointing to studies showing up to 50 times the incidence rate in COVID-19 spread in congregate living spaces.
We have to make the decision, one, on a kind of human rights and ethical level, whether we're going to provide safe, healthy housing for individuals experiencing homelessness. And then 2 is the very real impact that has on general public community transmission.
Housing Our Neighbors is calling on the city to instead shift its efforts to create permanent housing options.
We have not seen any clear, transparent plan to transition people into housing from the shelters. And that's what we've asked for from the beginning.
The Green Spring Avenue shelter stayed open throughout the pandemic, and several people brought up issues and concerns over the sanitary conditions at that shelter, and city leaders say they are working to fix those issues and will continue to follow CDC guidelines. Housing Our Neighbors is planning a march on November 21st, right around the corner from here. That'll start at 10:30 in the morning. Live outside of Baltimore City Hall, Eddie Kadam, WMAR 2 News.